Hi everyone, welcome to the August 2022 edition of Farsight's Human News, the remote viewing news forecast show that tells you what is going to happen, not what did happen. I'm Aziz from Farsight. Before I go on, let's recap what happened with our last Human News forecast. What was so great about the July 2022 edition was that we had 4 very interesting remote viewing news forecast reports, and all 4 reports were very specific. And as it turned out, the events were relatively easy to identify as major events during the month of July, when they actually happened. We think that this is another example of how you can hear the news before it happens by watching our Human News Forecast show. But we also think it is good for our audience to weigh in on this by commenting on our videos in our forums on farsightprime.com and the video discussion area on YouTube. So please continue to voice your opinions about the news forecast sessions. Discussion is always a great way to participate. Let's start with the 2 sessions by Shantae and Kahmia Dunson. Their reports are quite similar in the sense that they pointed to a military confrontation. In Kahmia's session, she focused on advances made by an attacking aggressor nation on another nation. It was a long-time takeover of an area, and it involved a major battle. At least temporarily, one side needed to retreat. Well, this is exactly what happened in the Ukraine war in July. The Russians have made some advances in a war aimed at a long-time takeover of an area. As the month wraps up, those advances seemed to have slowed, but the dominant trend in the first 3 weeks of the month were Russian advances. Shantae focused on what she perceived as a bombardment of an urban area. The key here is the idea of heavy shelling, and indeed that has been the primary battle tactic of the Russian forces of late in the Ukraine war. Constant bombardment from planes and artillery. Again, in the 4th week of the month, this seems to be diminished due to the Ukrainian use of more advanced weaponry. But the first 3 weeks of the month were dominated by Russian bombardments in Ukrainian urban areas. Intysam's session focused on what looks like a climate change event involving extensive famine in a dry, natural environment. The heat is nearly unbearable, and crops and animals are dying because of lack of water. The structures in the area are primitive. Well, this is exactly what has been the focus in the news relating to East Africa, specifically North Kenya, Somalia, and Ethiopia. The news reports for July have detailed this ongoing tragedy, especially reports appearing in the BBC. The reports are really quite shocking, and they happened in July. Finally, my own session focused on an event in an urban area. There was an address made by a male in front of an audience. Nearly everyone is wearing business attire. Male voices are talking, and the event is being video recorded, and the audience is very attentive. Well, that event exactly matched the resignation of the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. That happened at the end of the 1st week of July. As before, I want to emphasize that our viewers do these reports with only 1 session each. With many of our projects, the viewers have to return to a target more than once to get lots of details and to sort out even some of the basics. But it is interesting to see how much detail our viewers are able to get with only 1 session each. In our view, that is pretty good. Now, I'd like to reflect for a moment on the idea of the so-called law of attraction. There has been so much written about it and so much said about it. Much of it comes from the work of Esther and Jerry Hicks. I want to raise this to you now because it has an implication with regards to our human news forecasts. You see, according to the law of attraction, you attract into your experience events that find a parallel the dominant sense of your thoughts and your emotions. If you really want something and you concentrate on wanting it and focus on wanting it, and you demand in your mind that you are going to get it or else, well, you won't get it. The reason is because the dominant sense of your thoughts is the want of it, not the satisfaction of having it. So, the universe will match your experiences with your thoughts and emotions to give you more of wanting, not having. The vibration of having is much different from the vibration of wanting. Now, there is a physics reason for all of this. It is not New Age mumbo-jumbo. Everything that exists is based on quantum elements. The big is made up of the small, and all of the small is made up of energy or waves with a frequency. Well, often waves don't mix well, and they produce something called destructive interference. The vacuum in space is an example of that. A vacuum is not empty. It is filled with energy, but all of that energy is in a state of destructive interference, where one wave cancels out another wave and nothing manifests, which means that we detect nothing physical in that spot. But if we want something to exist in a spot, we must have something called constructive interference, where one wave adds to another to produce a bigger wave, or something we call a superposition. Physical things emerge into our reality as a result of these superpositions, and for some reason that physicists have not yet been able to figure out completely, things don't manifest unless they are observed or registered in some way. Thus, consciousness somehow works to create physical things out of quantum waves in states of superposition. Now, if we want something, the frequency of our own waves are those of wanting. Those frequencies are the opposite of the waves of having, so they interfere with one another in states of destructive interference. So, when we focus on the wanting, we cannot get what we want because the wanting frequencies cancel out the having frequencies, and what we want cannot get to us. Now, let's translate this into our human news program. When we watch the mainstream news, we are often left in a state of dismay with all the horrible things going on in our world. Also, we can see from our mysteries projects at Farsight that there are lots of terrible things that extraterrestrials have done and are still doing right here on Earth. If we focus on all the bad stuff, we are left with emotions and thoughts of terrible things. Well, focusing on all that terrible stuff with feelings of dismay will attract more terrible things. If we ignore the bad stuff, then that would be neutral. But then the bad folks would not have anything to stop them either, so they could keep doing bad stuff. But now consider this. When we publish our human news and our ET news and our mysteries projects, we are making an assertive act to see the truth, to get past the censors, to take control of what we know. With that knowledge comes a level of confidence, confidence that we can control our own destiny, and that changes our vibration. We stop being victims and we start being controllers of the events that we experience. That is why knowledge brings liberation and disclosure brings freedom. Knowing that we can see across time and space tells us that we can control what we experience. Without being able to see across time, you simply get smacked with what others are focusing on. You run into events by default. To take control of our own future requires us to have confidence that we can see what we want to see, and thus we can experience what we want to experience. We have to know that no one can enslave us by restricting what we know. Remember that one of the primary ways to control slaves is to control what they know. For example, in the old slave days of the American South before the American Civil War, slaves were forbidden to know how to read. The slavers knew that if they could read, they could control their own destiny. The same applies to everyone on this planet today. Knowledge sets you free. The confidence that you can know what you need to know without the meddling interference of power brokers gives you a vibration of confidence, and that is the frequency we all need to have. That frequency of confidence will lead everyone to be truly free. So you see, our human news program is our way of showing everyone that we are capable of controlling our own paths in life. Now, at this point in our show, I normally announce our next major mysteries project, but July and August are always special months here in Farsight. We are going to release something unusual in August. It is actually a collection of stuff, and what we release is something that we have worked on for a very long time. So expect some major stuff being released both on our YouTube channel and on farsightprime.com in August. We will present some of it on YouTube, but all of it will be available on farsightprime.com. Wait for it, all of it. It will be worth the wait. Also, We will announce our next major mysteries project at the end of August in our next Human News show. That mysteries project will be published on September 15th, and as with all of our major mysteries projects, it's amazing. But again, be patient as you see what we release in August in just a few weeks. It's big. Moving on, for those of you who want personalized instruction in remote viewing, Yeme Jeaneé and Intysam are teaching remote viewing both individually and in groups. Our methods are sufficiently complex that we use pre-printed templates for our sessions. Yeme and Intysam can work with you individually or in groups as you learn to use these methods. Our approaches address a wide range of applications that we do here at Farsight, including investment evaluations and forecasting. We do lots of stuff that nobody else does, and it's a big subject. But for those of you who are interested, Yeme and Intysam will show you how we do what we do. Be patient in learning any of our methods. Nothing that we do was learned in a day. Also, understand that when Yeme and Intysam teach remote viewing, no one at Farsight gets any financial benefit from this. Yeme and Intysam do this entirely on their own. Remember also that there is a large collection of instructional videos on farsightprime.com. Also, we just released 3 new Seco Plus projects for those of you who like to follow cryptocurrencies. Information about this can be found on our website, farsight.org. Seco Plus stands for Contemporary Investigations of Cryptocurrency plus other related elements. We focus on cryptocurrencies with 5-year forecasts in which we probe for adoption using our specialized remote viewing procedures and methods of analysis. Occasionally, we include a forecast for a different entity that we think will affect or relate to cryptocurrency markets. Our forecasts are available for free to see on YouTube, but the identities of the currencies and other elements are sold separately on our website, farsight.org. Cryptocurrencies are on the move, so now is a good time to think about such things. Again, as with all of our economic forecasts of any type, including our Seco and Seco Plus forecasts, no one at Farsight is a licensed financial advisor, and we do this for entertainment and educational purposes only. Nonetheless, we feel that as we continue to do this, it will become increasingly difficult for people to doubt the reality of remote viewing. Also, we can really use your help if you share our YouTube content with your friends. Be sure to like our videos, but really try to click the share button and send our content to your friends. Word of mouth has always been the best way to spread really new ideas. Relying on institutions to make fundamental changes in our world is almost a contradiction in terms. Real change happens from the actions of people, not institutions. Institutions resist change, they always have and they always will. Since all of you are people, help us make the change happen. It's a people thing. Moving on, how do you hear about all of our activities that we do at Farsight so that you can participate and get the latest when they happen, including our live streams? To start with, we use our email list and YouTube to make our major event announcements. So, there are 2 things that you need to do. First, you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel and remember to click the notifications bell that appears after you subscribe. That is the only way that YouTube will notify you of our new events, especially our live stream events. Just subscribing doesn't actually do anything. The notification bell is the important part, but that only notifies you about the things that we release on YouTube. To be notified about the things that we release on farsightprime.com, which you can watch using our Apple and Android apps on the web and on your home TV, you need to subscribe to our free email newsletter found on our website at farsight.org. You can also allow our apps to notify you of our new releases on farsightprime.com. Be sure to do all 3 things. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Farsight, and remember to click on the notifications bell, and then subscribe to our free email newsletter that you can find on our website. And finally, go to the settings of our app and allow it to give you notifications of our new releases on farsightprime.com. The links for YouTube and our newsletter are in the description area below this video, and the app is, well, it's on your phone. Those are how we announce what we do. We never send out spam and we never give our subscriber lists to anyone else for any purpose. Now, let's move on to this month's human news forecast for June 2022. Remember, we could always be wrong, and all remote viewing must be seen as an experiment, not a certainty. But look at the data for yourself, make your own decisions, and then let's watch the month roll out to see what actually happens. We have 5 remote viewers who participated in this month's project: Kahmia, Dunson, Yeme Jeaneé, Intysam, Shantae, and myself, Aziz Brown. We announced previously that Princess Jeaneé has done a name change and she is now called Yeme Jeaneé in Farsight work. These reports are amazing to watch. It is best if you just watch them yourself without me trying to explain them in advance. So, let's begin our forecast for August 2022. I will return after all the reports are presented to help pull everything together.
So starting off here, I have irregular topography. It's like this brown gold color. There are surface structures here, subjects here, and there's a lot of land. Okay. So we've got this irregular topography in the background here, and then some flat land, and then it kind of just looks like the land has like cracks in it, or it's just kind of piled on top of each other, almost like a sand or dirt. And then there's structures here as well. Okay. They're kind of scattered about like this. So even though the structures are kind of scattered around, they're all like the same area, if that makes sense. Because this is not a city. There's like a city that feels distant away, but this doesn't feel like a city. And there are subjects here, but they feel very sparse, kind of like they're scattered around. They're not really all together anywhere, besides this one area in a structure where I feel like there's several subjects here all inside. Okay. Another thing that I'm seeing is this streak in the sky. Kind of just looks like this out here. So kind of just like a little streak in the sky. I think there's a non-surface structure here as well. Yeah, there's some sort of non-surface structure here. It's kind of like rounded on the outside, and it's narrow. And there are no subjects inside of this non-surface structure as well. The temperatures here are very warm. It's very bright out right now in here, and so just a lot of yellows and gold tones and warm temperatures. The subjects here are completely covered, however. There's one subject here that I can see in like a room, and this subject is like pale. They're like average built, a little taller than I am, and they're male subject. This subject also has on like a full suit. It looks like a navy color or gray, and their skin again is like pale. They have this dark brown hair, but it's really short, and they feel like they're older as well. The next visual I have is there's this structure that's right like in the foreground, like this, okay? And I can still see kind of like irregular topography in the background, but there's a rectangular shaped structure here. The structure does have subjects inside of it. Now right in front of this structure, I see something that looks kind of like this on the ground, and then like streaks coming off of it. So it looks like either like something like crashed here or something left here, and it's leaving this kind of butterfly, not butterfly, but like flower petal thing around it. Okay, I hear there's like a lot of rumbling noises. There's like wind sounds, like a slight whistling sound, and that's about it. The subjects aren't really making a whole lot of noise here on the base surface. It does feel kind of like a base of some sort, and it just feels a little secret hush, like kept away from the general public. So looking at the target event here, it is happening here on the base surface. There is irregular topography in the background. The ground, like I said, like the base surface just looks like it's kind of cracking or like it's kind of broken around, but then there's structures here as well, kind of scattered about. But even though they're scattered, like I said, it's all like the same area, you know what I mean? There is this thing that I can see on the ground, and it looks kind of like an octagon type thing. I want to call it almost like a landing pad, because that's kind of what it looks like, a landing pad. And then it's got like this mark in the middle of it. Around here, that's also where I can see these kind of streaks in the ground. Around here as well is where I hear like that whistling noise. I can feel the ground shaking, and I can smell like smoke, and I can smell heat. Like it smells hot and it smells smoky, and you can almost see this kind of thing going upwards out of here too. So on this sort of either a landing pad or some sort of pad of some sorts, there are streaks on the ground that looks like something has either crashed here or left here, and then it smells like hot smoke. And outside of those like ground rumbling smoky things, like there's no other sounds here. I don't hear subjects talking. I just hear a lot of man-made noises, and a lot of smell a lot of man-made smells. Also here, I feel like the subjects here are mostly male subjects, and they do feel very serious, and like they're almost doing their, like it feels like they're here doing a job. So that's why I feel like this is some sort of base of some sorts. The main subject here that I was describing earlier, right, the pale subject with the short brown hair, he feels like very like serious, but he doesn't feel like overzealous. Like it doesn't feel like he's doing too much, but it does feel like he's very passionate, and it does feel like he's very involved. And so I keep getting this sense that there's some sort of preparation happening, or they're preparing for something, right? So that's why I'm thinking this non-surface structure here left from this landing pad, or this pad of some sorts. This non-surface structure here is very smooth, and it's man-made materials. It is this dark gray, light gray. It's like a mix of both, but it's muted tone and color, and it just feels very smooth. There's no subjects inside, and not that it almost feels like it's a replica of something, you know? Like it doesn't feel like this is the finished product. This feels like something that they're practicing on, something that was made to practice with, not necessarily like a full-blown, non-surface structure that they created for something else other than for testing. So when I'm looking at the cause of this, the whole thing, right? I'm getting this sense of, again, needing to protect not just themselves, but the surrounding area. It almost feels like they're at a defense as well, and not necessarily an offensive move. It feels like it's a just in case sort of thing that's happening here. So these subjects feel threatened. They feel, like something is going to happen to their home. So they're trying to figure out what would be the best way to kind of protect their peace. Another thing that I want to say is that it feels like on top of needing to protect and needing to, make sure that they're good, it also feels like there's some sort of dominance that's being asserted here. So almost like I'm big, I'm bad, and I'll show you, but not in a sense that it destroys anything. It does feel like it just kind of dissipates, but it doesn't feel like the intention of launching this structure here is to cause any actual harm. It does feel like a power move, and it feels like something that this person is orchestrating, almost putting on a show to show other people that they are about what they say they are. Particularly that one subject that I keep referring back to, because they're the only one that really stands out here, that male subject with the gray suit and navy blue. It's like a mix, navy blue, gray suit on with the short brown hair, and just like overall like round face, average build body. So yeah.
I have base surface here, a lot of movement, natural irregular land, also level man-made land, peaks, steep peaks, rocky, gravelly. I'm feeling a fast downward motion. Movement, energetics, energy, don't know what that is. Movement and energetics in the sky, cloud dynamics, mountains, steep peaks or hills, land. Smoke or burning, fire, possible. I just smell that type of atmospheric. I've got movement via subjects on the base surface. Just a lot of action, fast-paced, rocks crumbling, booming sounds, breaking sounds, just shaking and crumbling of the earth or a part of the earth. Reminds me of like an avalanche, but without snow, like rocks and boulders or piles of a mountain that's been disturbed. Is crumbling to pieces downward. It's loud. Like earthquake, bombing, avalanche, explosion, all of these are deductions. But that's the shaky energy we got going on. Oh no, right? That's what I'm feeling. Bro, there's a non-surface structure in the sky, and it gotta be ETs, man, I feel it. At least that's, I could also be lying. It could totally be an airplane. I have no earthly idea right now. But there's some energy. You could totally be wrong there. Please don't quote me on that. Probably not even ETs. But there is a non-surface structure in the sky. And a something, I don't know if it's an energy or a physical thing coming down or energetic, I'm not sure, coming downwards from the non-surface structure. I got this mountain-esque type of thing. I'm getting the feeling of Hawaii. I'm also getting a feeling of Nevada. Those are two completely different places. Deductions. There's a city in a distance from my peaks. Shaking, booming. I see things collapsing, things breaking, falling downwards, subjects in a panic, subjects like subjects are worried. Some are motivated. I don't know what that feeling is. I could probably interpreting that wrong. it's like I said, the shaking, booming, crumbling, and it's created from this unknown source. Is it a natural occurrence? Or something that is not natural? What is really happening here? This is weird. That's why I said it gotta be the ETs, man. No offense to the ETs around us. Not saying that all bad things have to be ETs, but this is weird. I sense water nearby, I think, or maybe something that's flowy in a movement. I've got subjects kind of, right? But also some that are trying to help others. There's subjects, these structures of some sort of objects, this land far out, this energetics. Fast-paced movement via the natural objects. Also subjects, downward movement coming from non-surface structure, emitting energetics, clashing, crushing. Subjects are afraid. I see colors of brown, gold, tan, yellow. There's moisture in the air. There are things down on the base surface, warm temperatures, minor foliage, maybe none or very little, rocky, grassy, gravelly, some tar. Texture, like a grassy texture on the surface. I feel it. Human life feels like other life as well. I see some uniformed clothing, possible. This could possibly be military, authority, or anything else. Who knows? Who knows what this uniform is? It could be people in uniform wreaking havoc. Beings, but I do see uniform clothing and a consistency in their movements together for the same purpose, for the same thing. Man-made and natural land with structures and steep peaks and crumbling and moving, and like I said, it's just. Is it an attack? An attack? Oh no. People are starting wars randomly for no reason. A deduction of a war. An attack, an earthquake deduction. Crumbling structures, and then there's this peaked mountain, and there is this energy or something rather spewing from it or from the area. See, I don't know if it's coming from the mountain or if it's coming from the area of the mountain above it or coming in over the land. It's just in that vicinity.
For this target, I have an urban area with a lot of foliage surrounding. The urban area has some very tall buildings, and then there's what looks like a road. There's a mountain range, seems pretty close by, and also some water. And then I'm seeing some subjects, and that's quite a lot of subjects, and they seem like they're all in rapid movement. So I was deducting something like marathon or, the running with the bulls in Spain. Yeah, they're all kind of running this way. I was also registering some energetics here. Like I said, it seems like quite forested. It's very green. So if you're familiar with Atlanta, it's almost like that because there's trees everywhere. It kind of feels like this urban area is encapsulated by like a forest. That's how much foliage there are. And right about here, I'm also seeing a non-surface structure. All right, so for my next visual, this is kind of just a zoom in on what's happening. So here we have many subjects, like screaming. Sorry, hard to draw. This is the subject in motion. Looks like a bug person, but it's a subject in motion. It's just hard to draw. And the movement here is very frantic. These subjects are just like, they're in a state of panic. So every one of these subjects is trying to flee this area. So it does look like a crowd, right? But I'm not sure if this crowd was there prior to this event or whatever event that's happening here caused this crowd to emerge. These subjects are, yeah, panicked, frantic, deducting stuff like stampede as well, just because of the movement. And then you can see the energetics. I was registering energetics. I couldn't tell exactly like where it was coming from, but from this angle, you can see, it's hard to describe these energetics, but it's sort of like explosive, however, more downward moving, kind of like something is falling. And there's a plume of dust and smoke that is rising and encapsulating all the other structures and subjects around it. And you got the foliage. And the sounds here are very loud. There's shouting, there's something else. I can't quite put my finger on it. Maybe it's the sound that this right here is producing, but it's very, very loud. When I breathe in, I'm getting like that dust, smoke. All in all, the air is terrible. It's like very, very bad air, very unhealthy air at this particular time in this place. All right, so now moving to the target activity. So again, there's a lot of frantic energy here. The subjects are running in all directions. So some are running this way, some are running that way. Like I said, I don't know if this was like a crowd that was here prior to this energetic event happening. But to me, the more I probe these energetics, it does feel like kind of like a domino effect. It feels like something is coming down very rapidly, like a heaviness that's kind of descending downward. So deduct like a building crashing to the ground or a construction accident, something like that. And then it causes a domino effect. Whatever happens here kind of starts toppling other things. The energetics move outward and affect other structures nearby. And then you have kind of like multiple things coming down at once. And then at that point, these subjects are like really, really going crazy, you know, moving rapidly. And you can kind of see, like, this is that road. Closer to here, you can kind of see subjects that are also like they're on the ground, you know, so with little to no life in them. So there definitely have been casualties as a result of whatever event this is happening, whatever event is going on here. right, so now I'm moving to the target event. So for the target event, I'm going to use this word lightly because it's just my feeling, but I'm feeling like this is an accident of sort. And again, it could not be, but when I see something like this, I just, the word accident comes to mind and I have to present that. So I feel like an accident of sort that are causing these energetics. And also like right here, you can feel the ground quaking. It's like shaking a little bit. Yep, and then like I said, the event associated is with this downward movement of energetics. Like this heaviness. For some reason, the word domino just keeps ringing in my ears with this event here. Like a piece knocking over other pieces and causing a much larger area of destruction. So the event also has a lot of fire and smoke ensuing from this, and multiple losses of life. So let me quickly do a collective deep mind probe. And this is tapping into the collective being to see what the overall feeling is. Okay, so immediately an overwhelming sense of shock. These subjects were caught by surprise. Apologize. They did not see this coming. They did not have any anticipation. It just all started happening all at once. And yeah, they were definitely caught by surprise. Their first instinct is to flee to safety. So that's why you start seeing all this rapid movement. It's adrenaline kicking in. And they go into a state of fight or flight. Okay, so I'm also sensing that their minds, at some point, they start to register the danger, and self-preservation kicks in, which is again that flee to safety. But shortly after, I start feeling the grief, the sense of loss. Once they've realized, oh my God, this is actually happening. Yeah, the sense of loss and grief kind of completely takes over, and these people are they're experiencing a humongous sense of loss. All right, for my next movement exercise, I'm going to move 5,000 feet upwards and take a look down. So from 5,000 feet, again, urban area, but within a very foresty environment, lots of foliage, very extensive foliage. So, and then I see this mountain range, like I mentioned. It's not very big, but it's there. And it has foliage all through. And foliage in the surrounding areas. And then we have the urban area here. It's somewhat big. I wouldn't say it's like the biggest urban area, but it's there. And then I also have a water source. It is extensive water, Deduct Lake, because I tasted the water and it was fresh. So yeah, obviously lake. Okay, and then right here is where I'm seeing the energetics. So that's the plume of smoke rising, and then the subject. Teeny tiny subjects from this angle, and some more of the cityscape. And that's all I have for this target.
Hi everyone. So the base surface of this target starts off with a large mountainous area, and that large mountainous area seems to hit a land-water interface, And this land-water interface also has a lot of structures at the edges. So here's the water. And there seems to be an urban area that seems to be extending around this sort of curved inlet where the water hits the land. And behind the urban area seems to be a little bit of a hill or a mountainous type of irregular topography, and it seems to sort of valley out that way. Anyway, not valley out, but it sort of extends, the irregular topography extends out in that direction. I also noticed that there seemed to be a little bit of smoke in that area. Unsure if that's related to the target at all, but this is the beginning of where the target starts. So let's move on from here. All right, so within the urban area, there seems to be a subject. Looks like a male subject, and he's dressed in formal attire. And he seems to be making some sort of presentation, or maybe not a presentation, but he's speaking to a bunch of other subjects. So this subject standing here, formal attire, seems to be darker on the outside. So this is a darker hue than the center, seems to be a lighter hue. All right. And he seems to be standing in front of some sort of object. So this is an object, almost like a table or something like that. But the subject is right there, standing, making a presentation. Seems to be like, if I was going to draw him a little smaller as a stick figure right here, he's making a presentation, and then there's a line of other subjects that are here just sort of listening to what he's saying. All right, so in the middle of him making this speech, I'll draw this out over here. This subject, which is that subject, I'll draw it out again. He's standing here, he's making his speech, and the subjects over here are sort of interrupted in their listening to this subject. So there's like a door right here. The door bursts open. The door bursts open. Multiple other subjects with this headgear, almost like hat-like headgear, they rush in and they disrupt this meeting going on with these people, or this presentation. So they run in, and these people are rather speculative but inquisitive in their collective deep mind probe of them listening to this subject. So these uniformed subjects, more than two of them, like maybe 3 or 4 of them, they rush in and they start ordering people around. So these guys end up ordering these guys around. These guys get really nervous, and then they sort of, it almost looks like they detain this person, but this person is quite irate at this moment. He starts pointing at these people and starts raising his voice and sort of yelling, and he's a bit nervous as well. As just his demeanor, his general energy gets a bit frantic at this time period. And then the scene sort of just ends up with that guy being surrounded by these subjects with headgear, and they're rather bossy subjects energetically. And the general vibe is that they've run in here and they're ordering people around, and nobody really can do anything about it. So this guy, once again, the main subject, he sort of seems to be not very happy. And he's just been shut down in his whole experience by these guys with sort of these dark, maybe navy bluish hued uniforms and headgears, and they just run in and stop whatever's happening. So this is really the general event of what happens here at the target. We have an urban area with a little bit of irregular topography and a water source, and this gentleman is having a presentation or speaking to a couple other subjects, and then a group of uniformed subjects burst in, order the people who are listening to just sort of stay there, and they kind of start looking like they're sitting down or something like that. And then they focus the majority of their attention on containing the group of listeners while almost detaining but putting their focus on this guy, the main subject. So, and he's very not happy about it, very angry about it. He does, I did notice he sort of puts his hands up like that. That's one last thing that I'll say is when this sort of the attention's more focused on him, he puts his hands up like that. So that is the actual last point of data that is there for this target.
For my first visual, I have a base surface with mostly level topography, have like natural land. I'm seeing like a lot of brown and like orangish hues, and also see like extensive water. It's kind of like the land is flat, but somewhat like elevated away from this water, and it's like extensive water nearby. And next I'm seeing like some very like dense urban environment. I have really hot temperatures here. The air is really humid, and it's just like separate areas, separate like towns, and there's like a little bit of foliage, but mostly urban environment on like flat areas of mostly natural feeling land. So looking at kind of like a closer look of these urban environments, what I'm seeing is like, the structures here are pretty small and very close together, but they're like, if I get a top view of these areas, it's like, the structures are very close together, but there's some areas that seem like they're like you can only access them by going through like an actual structure, kind of like a courtyard or like an alley, and there's a lot of kind of areas like that. Like you can just, if you don't go through a structure, you can't access this area. But it's so dense, you might not like, it's hard to really tell what's kind of in this area because there's so many different structures and stuff. So I'm also picking up like a lot of activity. This is a really like densely populated area with like a lot of subjects inside these structures and also outside. And I also have like say they're like outside, I have some subjects are kind of just like, they're in small groups, kind of together, not doing too much, like not a lot of activity from those subjects, but I do have some subjects that are like in vehicles, some small vehicles, and also it looked like kind of like scooters or bikes, just smaller vehicles, but still moving like really fast, kind of chaotic movement throughout these like urban areas. Okay, so taking a look at some subjects that are kind of standing out, or what I'm noticing about the subjects here, there's like male and female subjects, young subjects. What I'm seeing a lot of is like female subjects, and say they wear like a dress or something, with at least like 2 or 3 or more young subjects that stay with them in these groups. And I would say like some of them, they could be like their children, but some other women seems like more their relationship, like these women are just responsible for the children, maybe not necessarily it's their children, but they're responsible for them for some time period. But yeah, I'm seeing these groups of women and children together, and there's a lot of movement throughout this area, but I see like some structures seem to have like more of these groups of women and children like around them and inside like specific structures. They all kind of, the structures here, none of them are like physically look different. They all kind of look, small, simple, very clustered, but it's just these groups of women and children seem to be going to some specific ones. And yeah, they're like surrounded by other structures as well. So, okay, so what I see, like, if I were to go inside, like one of the structures like that, it's kind of like somewhat dim lighting, but also I'm seeing a lot of like colors, like the walls here are kind of colorful, like kind of like blue hues, yellows, greens, like somewhat bright colors. It's just the lighting here is very dim, but inside these structures, I'm seeing some like smaller rooms that are like separated. And then there are these groups I feel like are meeting inside each room. So it's like these groups of women and children arrive here, and then eventually they go into a room together as a group. And what I'm seeing, there's some other subjects that aren't a part of that group inside these smaller rooms as well. So I'm seeing, it's like So I have these women, I'd say most of them seem to be wearing like dresses. Somewhat like, I'd say kind of like a brownish complexion. Not very dark, but like brown complexion. And the kids are wearing like really simple clothes, like t-shirts, shorts. Like you can't really see that well. Yeah, but kids, the women and children group, they're in somewhat like casual, simple clothing. Yeah, and I have two other subjects that I see in these rooms, and it's like there's another female subject, and she kind of has like a professional, like somewhat serious appearance and vibe to her, like, and they're like sitting at these, sitting at like a table, kind of, yeah. And then I have another subject, and it's like, seems to be, when I look in like each of these rooms, there is like a male subject as well. And I have a kind of like very casual, the males seem to be wearing kind of casual clothes. They're sitting down. And the males really don't seem to be saying much. It's more like maybe these two women are talking more, but they're just not getting a lot of like expressions or anything from the male subjects here. And I'd say they're like maybe like in their, at least in his 30s. But yeah, they're all sitting at these tables in these different rooms, and I'm listening. It just sounds like a talking, kind of going back and forth, maybe like some sort of negotiation or like a mediator. This is what this subject feels like. Like they're all in the same room, but it's like the woman with the children is not directly talking to the man, even though they're all in the same room. So it's like she communicates with, so she's communicating with her, and then she communicates to him, and then it goes back through this subject. And it feels like they're making some sort of agreement or something. As I listen to them speak, they're definitely not speaking English. It sounds like a very tonal language, or like maybe even these two subjects speak different languages, and if I had to make a deduction, it's like maybe she's translating for them, and they're like coming to an agreement. And what I'm seeing is like these women that come in with a certain amount of children, they come into this like meeting and this structure. It feels kind of sketchy. Like like these women subjects don't exactly know, like they have an idea of what they're doing here, but they don't know everything. And these subjects maybe are kind of not giving them the whole truth or details. There's just something feels very sketchy about this arrangement that they're coming to. But as the women enter into this structure with a certain amount of kids, when they leave, they have fewer children with them. And what I'm seeing, like, so like they enter in like one of these structures and they have this meeting or agreement and the women leave, but some of the kids are sent to some other area structure, and the kids definitely don't know what's going on. But they also feel like very distracted, like they don't feel very concerned, but until they're like brought to these other areas, so they can be brought to other surrounding structures, but it's still kind of in these areas that you wouldn't see unless you knew where to go, unless you were very familiar with this area. It does feel like this agreement is like there's some exchange, like the women's bringing the children, and this man, or the men that are here are maybe promising something to the women, maybe like money or some type of promise. But even so, they come to the agreement. It feels like these women subjects aren't completely in on what exactly, like where the children are going to go after they leave these rooms. But yeah, that's...
Okay, so let's draw some conclusions from these data. August 2022 is going to be an interesting month. All of these sessions seem to involve urban areas. One session involves what looks like a military or police disruption of a political meeting. 3 sessions seem to involve a major explosion in or near an urban area. And 1 session seems to involve the placement or relocation of children. It sort of looks like a child trafficking type of thing on a large scale, although it is hard to tell what the motives are in this session. Overall, it does seem like these sessions are pointing to a very interesting month of August. Now, we wait and see what actually happens. So, that is it for our August 2022 edition of Farsight's Human News, the news before it happens. Thank you for watching. Please also join us next month in September 2022 for another look into the future of Earth humans. Also on FarsightPrime.com, be sure to look for our major surprises that will start to appear in August, our live stream events, the Farsight ET News, the monthly intelligence briefing, as well as new Farsight economic forecasts. And remember, we do Farsight at Farsight. Farsight is our style of remote viewing. Vocabulary is important in these changing times. I'm Aziz Brown from Farsight. Stay ahead of the curve. Let the mainstream fade in the dust. Be there now.